This video is sponsored by Squarespace. So if you need a website, a domain, or an online store, make your next move with Squarespace and use the discount code AndrewMarr. G'day there guys, I'm currently down in the southwest and it's beautiful down here. It's starting to warm up because we're halfway through November and we've got some cloud cover at the moment. So I'm spending the day just exploring the coast, finding some new locations and getting back out to some spots that I haven't been to in a while, just to check them out, to see what they are in terms of their potential for some landscape photography. What I'm also going to do today though is I thought I'd give you a bit of a rundown of my vehicle. Now I bought the Ford Ranger in 2015 and then I started making some modifications to it about 2.5 years ago, including the canopy, suspension, as well as the battery and electrical management, and also the lights that I had fitted on. And I did a video about that about 2 years ago, and I'll link that up in the corner here. And then about 1.5 years ago, I added the rooftop tent that you can see at the top, and I did a video about that I'll also link at the top here as well. Today though, I thought I would share with you how it's actually working out, how I live out of the car, and how I organise things for different trips, and I suppose my thoughts about some of the modifications that I made to the car. I'm in the middle of the state forest here, just outside of Margaret River, a little bit south of Margaret River. And as I said, it's warming up, so there's lots of insects. The bees are out, the flies are out, the marsh flies are definitely out and are biting. Hopefully the snakes will keep away. But look, let's get on with it and I'll show you around the car. Alright, so let's start at the front. One of the first mods that I made to the car was adding the rhubarb on the front. I did that actually just after I bought the car. It's one of the first things that I'd recommend anybody who is driving much in the country to get in Australia, just because of the amount of roofs that you can come across. So I added this on, as well as I changed the tyres to an all-terrain tyre. We'll get to them in a second. And look, I've been really happy with the rhubarb. It has saved the car twice. They haven't been major hits, but I've unfortunately hit 2 kangaroos while I've been driving around, and having the rhubarb on there is a great safeguard because it protects the rest of the car, which is a lot more expensive. They were only minor incidences, and there wasn't even any damage to the rhubarb, which is really good. The one thing that I was a little bit concerned about, the rhubarb is from opposite lock, is the amount of rust that is on the rhubarb. And I don't know whether that is a normal thing or not, I must admit. The amount of rust just around the joints and just at the back of where these bars that they're attached to the main bar, they're welded on there, and there's a fair amount of rust just around there. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. I'm keeping my eye on that. There's also some surface rust on the front and on the top, and it appeared quite early, just within the first couple of months. I've tried to treat it with an anti-rust, but that doesn't seem to have made much of a difference. So on the rhubarb, I had mounted these road vision headlights, as well as the bars that you can see just on the side there. And that has been absolutely brilliant. I do quite a bit of driving at night, and the beams at the front project a lot of light out in front, so I can see way off in the distance, which is really, really good. You can definitely tell the difference when I turn them back down. You've just got the normal lights happening, so this has been a great addition. These front plates are also fantastic. They're easy to clean, and they're a really good protection for the main lights, because of the amount of rocks and that is kicked up while you're driving around on country roads. So this is excellent. Now I had these beams placed on either side, and they're just angled out with the natural angle of the bar, just so that I could have a little bit of light on the side, because for two reasons. One is that's where your kangaroos and your wildlife are going to come from, so you need to be able to check along the side of the roads, and these really light up quite nicely on either side, probably 20 to 30 meters out to the side, which is really good, and they're a nice strong light that comes from either of these. I think these are the 10-inch bars from Road Vision. But the other thing that I use them for, of course, is to check out tracks. And when I'm going through the bush and I'm looking for different tracks at night, the lights light up the side, and I can find those tracks at night when I'm trying to find a campsite or something like that, or trying to get out of a location that I've been shooting at late into the evening. So that's also good. You'll also notice that I put a winch at the front. This is a carbon winch. I've had to use it twice, not for me. I've had to get or drag somebody else out of a bit of trouble. But I've mounted it because I do a lot of solo traveling, and if I am in trouble, I've got no one else but myself to get me unstuck. And so I thought investing in a winch would be really, really good. Luckily, I haven't had to use it yet, but I'm really, really thankful that I've got it, because if I was ever stuck on my own, I'd need some way of getting me out. I've also got a shovel on board, of course, and also some max tracks, which are your first port of call. But if I really get stuck, then I could use the winch if I can find something to winch off, of course. So I mentioned before that I had new tyres. I changed the tyres over from the factory ones about a year after I bought the car. I changed them to the Toyo AT all-terrain. These are the open country. They're quite a popular tyre, and that's probably because of the quality that you get given the money that you spend. These are 285/65 R17, so they're slightly bigger than the factory Bridgestone that came with the Ford Ranger. And I run 6 tyres, so 2 spares and I don't take both the spares every single trip, but if it's a trip up north and I think I might get into a bit of strife, then I'll bring the two spares. But it also means that I can rotate the tyres through in pairs as well, which is a lot easier to manage. I've only had one issue with the tyres, and that was when I backed over a rock that had split into the shape of an axe after the road had been graded, and it went straight through the tyre like a hot knife through butter. It would have gone through any tyre. So that was a straight out replace, unfortunately, but other than that, they've been really, really good. I didn't bother getting the mud terrains because I just don't drive enough in muddy conditions. And I didn't want a lot of noise on the road. I do travel plenty on tarmac as well as gravel, and the all-terrain are a really nice compromise between grip and handling the gravel, as well as a nice, quiet, comfortable ride on the tarmac on normal roads. These are the new ones that I've had put onto the front, so I've only had these since April. So they've had around about 10,000 K put on them, so they're pretty much brand spanking new. But if you come to the back here, these ones here were on the front. I was running these on the front, and then I've had them rotated a few times. They've ended up at the back. So these are the original ones that I had when I first put the tyres on here. And these have done probably somewhere like 55 to 60 kilometers, and honestly they still look brand new. It's obviously slightly less tread, but it's very difficult to tell the difference between the new ones on the front and the rear. So I'm probably going to get at least another 40 to 50,000 kilometers out of these all together, which is really good. So next up is the suspension. I've got Dobinson suspension on this. And I got it for two reasons. One was to be able to manage or handle the uneven roads and rock crawling and things that I do to get to different spots. But also I had the canopy, of course, which we're going to talk about in a second. But that is pretty much 500 kilos empty. So I needed to upgrade the GVM on the car. The GVM comes as 3200, and with the GVM it takes it up to 3500, 3.5 tonne. So it's got shockies, it's got coil springs at the front and leafs at the back. And I must admit there is a third benefit to it all, and that is just how smooth and how well the car actually handles. It's such a smooth ride now since I've had the suspension put in, even with the canopy and also the rooftop tent. It's just absolutely magnificent, and I really would do it again. If I was to do it again though, the one thing that I would change is to get the suspension put in before I actually bought the car, or in the process of buying the car, as opposed to putting it on 2 or 3 years after the fact. So it just made the whole process a little bit harder. It means that I can't necessarily drive it, or I've got to license it if I move state, stuff like that. And there was just a bit more of a process to get all the paperwork done and get it all certified. But I've got to say a massive thanks to Malaga Suspensions, the boys out there that helped me through that whole process, that installed the Dobinson gears, and of course thanks to Dobinson as well. But yes, absolute fantastic upgrade to the factory suspension, and it means that I can just get into these slightly more difficult to get to spots with a lot of confidence and nicely and safely as well. Alright, so let's talk about the tent. I enjoy going camping because I love experiencing the outdoors, and I have a passion for landscape photography. But now I have a third drive, and that is that at night I get to sleep in that tent up there. It is absolutely fantastic. I was so excited when I got the tent and had the tent put on there, and that was around about 18 months ago. And I'm just as excited on this trip as I was on my first trip with it. There's so much quality built into this tent. The tent is made by King Industries. Very, very proudly, they're an Australian based company over east. And just the gear that they are creating is just fantastic. I recommend that if you haven't already seen my video where I did a complete walkthrough of the tent, make sure you go and check that video out. I have had a couple of questions about the tent that I just wanted to address. One is, and the most common one is, does the tent get wet? Now, if the tent is packed away and the shell is shut and it is sitting through a storm on my driveway, nope, it does not get wet. Not one drop of moisture gets inside. If there's moisture that's getting inside, there's something wrong with maybe one of the bolts or screws that's mounting something to the tent that perhaps you've put on there. But it is absolutely watertight, closed up. Now, does the tent get wet if I'm out camping and the tent is up, I'm sleeping, and it rains? Well, it's canvas, so of course it gets wet. It gets wet just like any camper trailer would. And so you've got to make sure that the canvas has an opportunity to dry. Now that's one of the reasons why I've got it up at the moment, is that I just make sure that when I get a chance, I'll just pop it up for 10 or 15 minutes and it dries really, really quickly. It's a very thick canvas, and it's the type of canvas that it is, it's made so that it can actually be scrunched up tightly when it compacts, which is fantastic because it actually spends most of its time, even though I try and go out and camp as much as possible, it spends most of its time actually packed away. So to have that type of canvas is important. Another question that I get quite often is the way that the awning comes out. It only comes out the back there and not out the sides. And I'm actually really happy with that. I love this design. And the reason for that is if I want to have a window open, then I can just have my door open if it's raining. But even when it is raining, and I've slept in this many, many times when it's been raining, I can still have just the top of the window open. So the window doesn't necessarily fold down because I haven't got the zips brought down the sides at all, but I've just got a slit across the top open, and that gives me plenty of air flow that I need, as well as the door at the back has actually got a window that the awning goes right out over. And so I can have that halfway. Like it rained last night and I've got the window down halfway down that door, and I don't need it any more open than that. So I like that. Now there's some designs that have the awning coming out around the side, and they've got a steel rod or spring that kind of hooks and stretches the canvas out. And the reason why I don't particularly like that approach or that style is that in just the slightest amount of wind, that starts to flap and move about, and it's very, very noisy. So that's one of the things that drew me to this style, was the way in which the awning comes out the back. I think it's really good. And the fact that it is held up by these super peg rods is just a brilliant idea. Again, another Australian company. And so you've got two poles on the side, and then you've got a crisscross pole across the top that pushes those two poles out from the rest of the tent. Now, there are a few modifications that I've actually made to the tent. Now, one of them was, when I got the tent, the mattress that came with it was a 75mm foam mattress. And I felt that that wasn't quite thick enough. I do believe that they now come with a 100mm foam mattress, and I could have easily upgraded, gone to Clarkson or something like that and upgraded the foam. But instead what I did was I went to, I think it was Kmart or Big W, and I bought a couple of yoga mats. Some of them is the high density little centimetre and a half yoga mat, and I've got that on top of another type of yoga mat that has another high density rubber. And that just gives it a little bit of firmness. I felt that just with the 75mm foam, my hips were actually touching the bottom of the foam, or the bottom of the tent, sorry. So with the high density foam just underneath it, it just gives it that extra little bit of padding, so I don't actually feel the bottom of the tent anymore. Keeping in mind that I'm a fairly big bloke, so I suppose 75mm was right on the edge there. For most people, it would be fine. So that's one of the changes that I made to the mattress. I also put a mattress topper on there just for a little bit of extra comfort, and that is it's absolutely brilliant. It is so comfortable. I actually find getting up in the mornings for a sunrise shoot just a little bit harder because it's so comfortable. I know that there's lots of talk out there about people that prefer a night in a swag as opposed to a rooftop tent. I'll take a rooftop tent any day. Maybe I'm getting a bit soft in my old age, but just the comfort, the convenience, I can have this set up in a minute or two, and it just fits really, really nicely with the rest of my landscape photography workflow. I don't have a lot of time to spend setting up big tents and stuff like that. So this rooftop tent is perfect. I want to show you just one other modification that I made. All right, so I'm up underneath the awning here. You can see the poles at the top there, the crisscrossing poles, and then I've got the poles on the side here as well. Now, every now and then when it does get windy and the wind comes in from the open side, this top here will actually move up and down. And so to fix that, all I do is I just slip my towel through those poles there. I'm usually trying to dry my towel anyway, and this is the perfect location to do it. And if I slip it through there, then that just deadens the sound completely. One of the other issues that I've sometimes had when things are shaking about with a little bit of wind are these poles at the top here can start to slide down the upright poles, just like that. And so what I did was I went back to Super Peg and got one of these collars, or I got a pair. They're only about $11 for a pair. And these just slip up like that, and then with a wing nut, they just stay there like that, nice and firm, and then this bit here is just not going to go anywhere. So it just makes everything really nice and tight in the wind. Nothing's moving about or shaking, which is excellent. So one of the advantages of the rooftop tent is it just stores so much in there. So I don't have to bring stuff down when I'm packing the tent up. I've got currently up there 2 sleeping bags and 2 pillows. Plus I've got this bag here, which is from GRABmeGEAR. It's a pouch that I have beanies and spare change of clothes, some socks. I've got some wet wipes, plus some cords as well, because I do recharge my phone up there because I've got a USB charging port up there as well. So there's lots of room, and just in the morning all I've got to do is just move the pillows into the center, and then the poles come down and sit next to the pillows, and then the canvas just scrunches round all of that. So it's really easy to pack up, and I don't have to bring anything down in the morning, which is really convenient. I've also got another GRABmeGEAR pouch which has got a Velcro back to it that sticks to the roof, and it's got a zip, and that allows me to put some other bits and pieces in there like books and stuff like that, a torch. And then I've got my wallet and keys, and it's amazing how much you take with you. So I can have all of that up there, and it's all tucked away nice and neat, and I don't have to be dragging all of this stuff out every morning when I want to get up and get packed and get going. So let's talk about the canopy. It's got to be one of the most significant changes that I made to my setup, adding the canopy on and taking the tub of the ute off, and also probably the most significant investment that I've made as well. But the way that this is set up just works so well with the way that I camp, the way that I pack my car and my gear, the way that I have to access either food or other camping gear or camera gear. It's taken me a little while to work out what has suited me the best, but this setup is certainly working very, very nicely. So you'll see already here that I've got these GRABmeGEAR pods. These are made by a guy in Perth, Jimmy, from GRABmeGEAR. It's a small business, and my goodness, is he making some fantastic high quality camping gear to help people just enjoy the outdoors. And the whole premise of this is that you can pack stuff up into bags and pods and bits and pieces and take them away with you. So you don't necessarily need a setup like this. You could just be packing stuff into the boot of your car, into a boot of a sedan, or into the back seat of a car, and having things conveniently bagged up like this is really helpful. They've got handles on either side. They're made out of a beautiful canvas. They come in black and green, I believe. I went with the black, of course, and then they come with a clear top, so you can see exactly what's inside there without having to open it up, which is excellent. Now, the way that I've got this sorted out, these two here are my clothes. I usually only have one, but I wasn't too sure how wet and cold it was going to be down here. So this stuff here is just all my wet and cold gear, jumpers and raincoats and stuff like that. But pretty much I just live out of this bottom one here. And then I've got these other bags, and so the bags on this side are actually all of my food, even though my kitchen is on the other side. But it works really well because all of my other cooking kitchen stuff is on the other side, where the fridge is and where the bench and the drawer is. I'm going to show you that in a second. But the food sits over here. But I've got the food sorted out so that if I want breakfast, then this bag here is all of my oats, cereal, coffee bag. Like that's what I need for breakfast in the morning. So I just grab that bag and walk around and sort out my breakfast from there. Sometimes I'm not walking around to the other side. I'm actually taking this to a table that is maybe near a campfire or something like that. So again, having it conveniently in a bag that I can walk around with, either to the other side, to another campsite, to a campfire somewhere. That's the convenience of having everything in an easy to grab bag. So I've also got, as I said, I've got that bag there which goes up to the top with me at night, or normally sits permanently up there in the rooftop tent. And I've got canned goods here. I've got sauces and hot chocolate and other condiments in this bag here. And then I've also got a snacks bag which I have with me in the cab, in the car. It's got bananas and apples and other fruit and nuts, and I've got a couple of bars in there as well as some Rice Crisps. And they're just convenient. They're they're very close to where I've got my camera bag, because I actually have my camera bag in the back seat here. So I tend to have my camera bag there. And then I've got my snacks just here. And so if I know that I'm going to go and have a bit of a shoot, and it's going to last me a couple of hours, and I might need a snack as I'm headed out, then I'll grab something and I'll stick it in my camera bag. So that's why they're convenient to have in there. Now, since my last video about the cab, I installed this aluminium shelf which bolts up into rails and means that I can move it about. And I installed this around about a year ago, actually, or just over a year ago, around about 13 months ago, and it has changed this whole dynamic. So it was from then that I had these bags with my food on this side of the car as opposed to the other side of the car. And then I've got spare toilet roll, I've got my billies here, and I've also got my other camera gear. So I've got another camera on board, depending on which camera system I want to use. I've got my drone here. I've also got my GoPro setup here as well. So they just sit nicely across the top there, which is really cool. In the center, I've got things that are much harder to get to, but I don't often need. I've got a spare sleeping bag in the middle there. I've also got my air compressor, if I need to air the tyres up. And I've also got a couple of big bottles of water in the center as well. And I just want to talk about water just for a little while. On board here, the Canopy has a tank of 43 litres. And so I fill that up every time I head out. And then I've got those other bottles of water. They're fairly big bottles of water, around about 8 or 10 litres each. And I've got 2 of them. And I've had them for probably about 6 months. I haven't needed them. But they're kind of like my backup drinking water, if you like. And then sometimes I'll also have on the back here, I've got a holder. So I've got a jerry can of 20 litres that I can put on the holder on the back. And I only do those for long distances. But the advantage of having your water separated like that is that if I just ran straight off the 43 litres, there's no gauge to tell me that I'm nearly running out of water. So I find out that I'm running out of water when I've run out of water and it's too late. So being able to split the water up, I know that if I've run out of that, then I'm down to my last 20 litres of water in the canopy here. And then of course I've got the water at the back as well. It also means that if I get stuck and I, for some reason, need to move away from the car, and it might be that I need to move 20 or 30 metres away to some shade or something like that, I'm not stuck with the water being in the car. I can take the water out of the car and I can move it away if I really am stuck and I can't stay with the car. I can bring water with me, which is also handy. I'll only put the 20 litre, because it's extra weight on the back, I'll only take the 20 litres of water with me on those longer trips. So I did it when I went up to the Pilbara earlier this year with my son, and then I did it last year when I went up to the Kimberleys as well. So with the 43 here and the 20 on the back, that's 63, and then I've pretty much got another 20 on board inside in bottles, so there's another 83. So it's pretty good, and of course I can keep them topped up as I go. So before we move over to the other side, I just want to show you the drawers. I've set them up slightly differently as well. These nicely roll out, and again I have got these GRABmeGEAR bags that kind of set me up and organize my gear inside here. This is pretty much, I've got my camping tools, things like little axes and mallets and a saw here. This bag is full of ropes and tie downs and bits and pieces like that. This bag over here are all of my car related things. I've got spare nuts and bolts. I've got spare water for the car. I've got some WD-40 as well as some handy little Tyres. I've got a gauge, air pressure gauge, and things like that. So that's what's there. And then also in here I've got my first aid. Now that one there is a hiking first aid, and then I've got a snake bite first aid. And if you guys haven't come across survival emergency services, they are just the best first aid gear you can find and you can get. Again, it's an Australian company. Wonderful story behind this company. So go online, check them out. It's a great story and a very successful one. And then I've got my large first aid kit here as well. What's brilliant about these kits, and they are just fantastic. Like this one here is brilliant because it's just for snake bites, which is so important in Australia. But then I've got this first aid here, and you can see it's all broken up into and all labelled with bits and pieces, so you don't have to be running around. And they're colour coded as well, so I know that anything to do with blood, I think it is all the red stuff. And then I've got gloves and gel. All the blue stuff is stuff to do with hygiene and keeping clean. And then there's red labels over here. It comes with a first aid kit, and there's everything in here you can imagine. So this was a great investment, and one of the first investments once I had the canopy and the room to be able to put this stuff in. I had this guy here beforehand, which I sometimes still take hiking with me, and I'll take the snake bite as well, the snake bite kit. So important. The other thing that I have in here are just all my hygiene stuff, things like Band-Aids. I've got some soap here. I've got all of the different things you can put on you for keeping you safe from bites and bits and pieces before you get bitten, after you get bitten. There's a couple of bandages in there and things like that. And there's a roll of toilet paper in there also, as well as my cleaning my teeth. Now the reason why that's on this side is it's this side that I have the tap. So it just makes everything, I'm not having to walk from one side into there, back out here. I've got everything just organised on the one side. In this drawer here, I've got all of my electronics or stuff to do with either the photography that I do or the filming that I do for YouTube. So I've got it on this side, and I've got it, it's a smaller drawer. The batteries that charge all of this, the lithium batteries from Revolution Australia, are sitting at the back there. That's why this is a slightly shorter drawer. But it's here because of the inverter, which means that I can just plug in a normal power board. And I've picked one that has a couple of USBs here, as well as a couple of normal electric ports. And this is where I charge all my batteries on this side. It plugs into the inverter there, and I can just turn that on, and away we go. I've also got rechargeable lights here. I've got headlamps here. These are my backup ones. I've got just a bag of cords, so all different types: USB, USB minis, micro USBs, USB-C. In this side, I've got a bag of batteries for all the things that I need batteries for. I've got some bits and pieces for mounting my GoPro, and other bags of things that help me with lenses and lens caps, and I've got a little speaker there. And the back one, I've actually got all my micro cloths that I go and make sure that they're nice and clean, and then put them back there because I grab them throughout any trip. I'll just grab a couple, put them in my pocket when I'm about to head down to the beach for a shoot. The wonderful thing about having the things that I am charging on this side is you can see that I've put it into the drawer here, and with this turned on, and at the moment I'm charging the battery that just ran out for that camera there. This can be charging away, as well as a whole bunch of other stuff, and it just sits quite nicely inside here, and then the cord just tucks around there, and it doesn't matter whether I'm camping here for the night or I could be taking off. These things can be charging completely on the go, which is wonderful. The inverter is by RedArc, and that's what I have for all of my power management system. I've got the Manager 30 on the other side, and that has been fantastic to be just charging everything. And it doesn't matter whether I'm driving, it'll organise the power from the car, or whether I've got the solar panel out, it'll organise that. It'll convert and get the power in from the car, or if I've plugged it into mains, it will bring in the power from the main. So it manages all of that. I don't have to think about anything. There's just one display there, and I just work out how full the batteries are, how much charge I've got left, how much voltage, and it'll tell me how much percentage I've got or how many days it's predicting I've got left there. But yeah, it's really good. It's one of the greatest things about having a system that you don't have to think about is you don't have to worry about it. It just handles everything for you. I don't have to be switching from one thing to another. The only thing I have to really think about is which batteries I need to be charging next to make sure that my next camera has got a full battery in it. Cool. Let's go around to the other side and just check out the kitchen. I just want to thank Squarespace for sponsoring this video. No matter what level you're at with your photography, a website is a fantastic tool to help you grow, both as a photographer as well as a business.
And Squarespace has got to be the easiest platform for building amazing looking websites that I've come across, and I've been using them for years. The way that the templates are designed, they make your images stand out without you having to do anything. Just upload them, no need for any code. And you can start building an audience by just adding a blog. And in just a few clicks, you can be ready to be publishing posts about your own photography journey. Your website can also be extended with an online store that integrates easily with payment gateways. So the process of selling a product or even a service is made really easy. So head on over to squarespace.com for a free trial. That'll give you heaps of time to set up your website. And when you're ready to launch, make sure you go to squarespace.com/Andrew Marr to get 10% off your first purchase.
All right, well, before we get round to the kitchen, this is the back of the canopy. I've got these reverse lights on. These are amazingly strong. They come on just when I've chucked it into reverse, or I can go around here and I've got a switch that I can just switch the lights on and off. And that's really good if I'm camped up and I just need some initial light just to look out on the area. I've got this rubbish bag. This is another bag from GRABmeGEAR. Jimmy's gone through a couple of iterations, but this has got to be the best, I reckon. It's got a nice little lip on the top there, and you can see how dusty I get it. I took one up to the Pilbara and gave him some feedback, and then he made some improvements on that, and this is the third iteration, and I've got to say it's one of the best. Inside here there's actually an inner which actually pulls out. It's fully made of plastic there, so you can wash it down and stuff like that. So it's definitely the way to go, and make sure that all my rubbish is on the outside. It's got this front pocket as well, which I've sometimes used for wet shoes and just stuff that I don't want in the canopy or in the car. This is where I store it, which is good. All right, let's have a look at the kitchen. So on the other side is pretty much the kitchen, and I've got it set up quite simply now. With all the food now on the other side, it just makes this area a lot easier to manage. I've got the drawer here that slides in and out, or the bench, sorry, that slides in and out underneath the drawer that slides out, which is good. I usually have a couple of mats or a board here just to protect the aluminium bench. This is another product from GRABmeGEAR. If you're looking for a stocking filler, a really good stocking filler, because they can be used for anything. I use them as a mat here when I've got my coffee gear out, but you can use them as a very lightweight minimalist seat if you're hiking or something like that, just to keep your backside off the ground like that. So they're really cool. But inside here I've got a couple of custom bags by GRABmeGEAR that just handle just some things that I wanted sorted out. So this bag here houses my induction cooker. So I cook either with induction because I've got the power on board, or I cook with my burner, which is just on the top here on this shelf. And as well as that is also in a GRABmeGEAR bag. That's the burner. And then the cartridges for that, I think, is in another bag by GRABmeGEAR just along the side there. So they sit quite nicely at the top there. And then I've got these other ones. This here is almost anything I need to, like plates and cutlery and stuff like that. So I can grab that. And then also this here is my coffee making gear as well. And the convenience of having all of these in a bag, like the food, is I can grab a bag of food and say my dinner plates and cutlery, or I can grab all of my kitchen utensils here. I can pick them up and I can go over to a group, I can go over to the campfire, I can go over to somebody else's camping setup and cook there. I'm not having to come forward and back. I've got the whole kit with me. inside, this is basically my entire kitchen that I can move about. And then inside here, I've got all of my things sorted out into, there's some dishwasher liquid. I've got alfoil here. I've got any of my knives and graters and stuff like that. And again, these are GRABmeGEAR pouches. I've got all of my spices and salts and peppers there as well. My oil is there. And I must admit, this has actually saved me because I did have a bottle that leaked of oil, and the canvas bag was able to just capture all of it, and it didn't spread throughout the rest of this bag, and it didn't spread out through the rest of my my setup, because I had these individually in bags. So that was really, really good also. And this here is my fire kit. So yeah, stuff is all sorted out and just absolutely ready to go at a moment's notice, depending on what my needs are. So I'll just pack that away. The other way that I cook, of course, is I had this installed about a year ago, I suppose. This is the Travel Buddy, the 12-volt Travel Buddy. This is the larger one, and this has been fantastic for just heating up food. I can put pies in there, and Chico rolls and pasties and sausage rolls. That's a standard. And they're pretty good after around about an hour and a half, generally, of cooking or heating up. But I've put, I buy pizzas and put those in there for a bit of a snack. But I've seen people do some amazing stuff with ribs and yeah, you know, there's a whole website of recipes out there that'll give you a whole bunch of ideas about what you can do with a travel buddy. So yeah, I've got that, and I'm really enjoying cooking with that. Now onto this. This is my thermos, which I got this idea from Matt Fields, because this is what he uses something like this as well. So what I do is I only boil my water about 2 litres, or I think this is 1.9 of a litre, and I only boil it once in the morning, and then I make my coffee and then pour the rest of it into the thermos there, and that stays piping hot for the whole day. In fact, even the next morning I can get away with making a cup of tea with the water straight out of here, but I tend to just boil it again and get it nice piping hot for the rest of the day. So it means that I'm reusing the water that I'm not using, but I am heating it up. I'm not wasting water or anything like that, and I'm not wasting time as well. So I boil the water once, I boil a whole bunch of water, I store it in this. This is fantastic. This is from Clean Canteen. There's a couple of them out there, but it's a insulated vacuum double liner thermos that has been really good, and it's quite rugged, and I just slip it in the back here, and it does get thrown around a little bit. Maybe I should find a better spot for it, but yeah, that's what I use for all my coffees and teas and stuff like that. That is pretty much it. I've got this shelf up here, and I am just trialing. I've just gone and bought a new set of chairs, camping chairs. I haven't tried them out. This was going to be the first trip, and I've only had one chair set up so far, as opposed to those really big chairs that I used to have in there for a couple of years, and they were just a nightmare to try and get in and out of this shelf. It wasn't really working particularly well, so I went for some slightly smaller chairs that are very, very light, which means that I might even be able to take a chair with me when I go for a bit of a walk to take some photos. But importantly, they don't take up a lot of room in that top shelf, which is good. And I've got my table across there, as well as my sea mat. I'm trying out a new fridge. This is the fridge, the Monkey monkey fridge, crazy monkey fridge or something that you can get from GRABmeGEAR. My son works at GRABmeGEAR, and so he picked it up, so it's technically his fridge. I had an old Engel, but this is actually quite convenient. Lots of space. It's got a digital display here, currently at 1 degree, which is quite nice. Yeah, it's around about the same size, maybe fractionally bigger than the Engel that I had. Two biggest differences though, this is a lot quieter, it runs a lot quieter. The Engel, I would hear at night when I'm in the rooftop tent, I would hear it start up and shut down. This I can't hear at all. And the power draw on this is a lot less on my system, so that's another advantage. So there it is there, brass monkey, not crazy monkey, brass monkey. I think you pick them up from GRABmeGEAR. Rightio. If you've watched this far, thank you so much for watching this video. Hopefully you found that helpful. If there was any information that I missed out, if you've got any questions about the setup, how I've organised things, then leave them in the comments below and I'll do my best to get back to you as quickly as possible. I hope you get a chance to get out and just enjoy the outdoors like I have today. I think it's about time I go down to the coast and see whether I can find a spot for sunset, because there's a few clouds in the sky. Might be a good one. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.